In this session, let's start dealing with the interest rate specific derivative instruments, where our focus is primarily on interest rate caps and interest rate floors. And combining these two, we will even create what we call as collars. So these are the three instruments which are of more important for us. Of course, once we understand the cap and the floor, we can very well talk about the collar on the same lines. Now, whenever we talk about interest rate cap, as the word itself is saying, I am putting a cap on the interest rate. So it's as good as saying, let's say I am borrowing. Let's say I am borrowing at a floating rate. Now, once I have borrowed at a floating rate, at regular intervals, probably on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, whatever is my payment period, at regular intervals, depending on what is the floating rate that is persisting at that point, my payment would be depending on that. Rather than that, if I take a cap, it's as good as saying, okay, as long, let's say I have set the cap at around 8%. It's as good as saying, if the interest rate, if the floating rate is less than 8%, I'll still pay the floating rate itself. But if the floating rate crosses 8%, I'll only pay 8%. That is how we are, in a crudest sense, I can talk about an interest rate cap in that typical manner, which means probably it is looking more like a call option itself. If you remember the way we talk about a typical call option, if the stock price is less than, let's say, a strike price of 100, I will purchase it at the stock price itself. But if the stock price goes greater than 100,